Dawson's Rambles.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Ryder here. I wanted to do a quick little discussion and theory video based on the recent news around Power Rangers' upcoming new beginning with its new shared TV and movie universe, probably after Dino Fury. Mainly there's been a little bit of anxiety that once Hasbro starts to get into its own era past Dino Fury, with whatever this movie TV show stuff brings us, that they're only going to focus on MMPR. That the animated show or the movie or whatever would only be MMPR related, and that would become the only thing. And I think that's pretty understandable, since MMPR is like the only one that ever really made itself widely recognizable, and so it makes sense that people will be worried about it, and it also makes sense logically why they would want to do that. If they're trying to make a wider appeal, that they would choose something like MMPR as the face to catch as wide of a net as possible, or cast as wide of a net as possible. Now I have a couple different thoughts on this, on why I'm not as worried about it, and I think first and foremost, I'm just really hoping to see a good story that takes advantage of the potential of Power Rangers that can be widely appealing. And as much as I'd like to see us not only just use MMPR, if we end up just doing that in some form, so long as the story's good, I'll be a little bit disappointed, but I won't be that mad. We've been in such a state of purgatory of really outdated and bland adaptions that I really just want to change. And even though I like seeing a new cast and new stuff every year or every 2 years or whatever, and I like aspects of that, if we just do focus more on MMPR mythology, but the stories are good and engaging and grow the brand, I'll ultimately be okay with it, even if I'm a little bit disappointed. So like, I'm more concerned about the quality over the show than the aesthetics, so I'm a little bit less worried in terms of that. But also, I don't necessarily think it means that we would do away with all other new stuff. I think if you have to think about it a little bit logically, it's the same with the toys. Like I said, MMPR just sells well. So it would make sense for them to maybe focus on something more related to it. And I find that understandable, but I don't necessarily think it means that we'll rule out getting new stuff, new different teams in different forms, or new Zords. I think we could still get all kinds of new stuff. And it's kind of interesting when you think back to MMPR's start and how we held on to those core 5 suits because of how iconic they became. That, you know, almost at Hasbro, but Saban was afraid to let those suits go because they became so iconic, which is why we had, you know, Die Ranger and Kaku Ranger Zords without the suits, you know, until Alien Rangers, but you know what I mean. But then eventually they hit a point where the brand wasn't growing enough where they're like, okay, now we have to move on. We have to do Zeo. We have to do the O-Ranger suits. We have to move on. So I think it's interesting that back then, you know, it was at this height of popularity because of MMPR's iconic look, but then, you know, it dwindled, so then they had to move on. But now, like, we have to go back to it. We have to go back to, like, capitalize on its popularity. And I'd be interested to see, though, if they do that, if they do just go back to straight MMPR, will we hit a point where we need to move on again? I think that's kind of interesting to think about with that. What I think will probably happen is, I think the movie, I'm not sure what the movie though, to be honest. There's rumors about the movie involving the new team visiting past seasons and stuff, and I think they would lean heavily on MMPR. So I'm not sure about the movie, to be honest, in terms of what they're going to do about the suits and all that. Will they be close to MMPR? Will it be MMPR 2.0? Will it be its own thing, but then they try to endear the casuals to it by bringing back MMPR cast members? I don't know. But when I think about the show and the idea of the animated main show just being MMPR related, I could see them maybe doing something like an MMPR 2.0 where they have the suits that look similar but something slightly different, or maybe like an MMPR Next Generation, or like a reimagining, almost like the Ben 10 cartoon, maybe / hopefully not like the 11-minute more episodic stuff. But the idea of taking what the Ben 10 reboot does is it does some of its own new stuff, but it also takes stuff that was from the previous series and reimagines it a little bit. So I could see it being something like that. Like, I could also very well see them doing an animated series that's just MMPR, like classic, like we know it, with the same Zords and the same characters and stuff. But like, as we head into the future, I think it might be something just more MMPR related, but we might get new suits, maybe like a new Next Generation 2.0 in regards to it, maybe a little bit something new that's tied to it. I don't think it will be strictly that, but it does make more sense for them in some way to lean towards it. You know, whether it's directly doing an MMPR animated series or a new generation one, or a reboot of it that's like similar yet different. It makes more sense. They even said in a comment at one of the recent, or was it the Fan Friday? I can't remember if it was Fan Friday or if it was Hasbro PulseCon, but someone asked them, like, you know, are you going to do more than MMPR? And they said, you know, obviously MMPR is the most important one, so it's always going to be in the forefront, but we're also going to be bringing you stuff from other seasons. And that made so much sense, because again, as much as I'm sick of MMPR in a lot of ways, they have to think about what makes something most marketable to everybody. So if they do lean towards MMPR more in terms of certain things, I think that's okay, so long as the story is good to try to sell it more, so long as we still get other stuff that's new in some way, shape, or form. And I think we will. I just don't think it might be apparent right off the bat. I think it'll be interesting to see over a few years, and I think we need to give it a little bit time. So I do think there is going to be some sort of more focus on MMPR, but maybe not in the way we're thinking. But what do you guys think? Do you think they're focusing on too much on it? How do you want to see them focus or not focus on it in the future? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, like, comment, subscribe, and climb steps and ring that bell to get my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.